Hello, this is Pixie doing another video. Um, so there's a few points I should touch upon. The Zika virus, everyone's heard about it. It's a bioweapon. If you look at the history of mosquitoes, they go back millions of years, to be honest. And they'd never had Zika before. There was in a fairly recent past, there was concerns about mosquitoes, climate change, spread into the US, passing malaria into the US. So they did some genetic modification on mosquitoes so that they would basically produce all females. I think that was the idea, and that way, or either it's all males, and basically there wouldn't be enough to breed, so it reduced the population. Well, that's what they would tell people, but I think it's actually they were working on this Zika virus, and then that's come out and been spread to certain countries. There's also issues about how mosquitoes migrate. I don't think they're going to migrate maybe from I think it was South America. There was reports of it over to the Philippines. I mean, yeah, the weather's warm and so on, but I don't think they would want to travel that far. They're more breeding swamps and like I say, brown cattle and things like that, and just for their blood. But the Zika virus, I still need to have a bit more information. Exactly how it gets itself into. Well, how does it infect a mosquito? Because malaria is quite, basically the parasite picks up from one host to the next, and then it just spreads it around. But with Zika, it might be a different story. And I also wonder how far back bioengineering goes. Maybe we underestimate how advanced some of our possibly there's underground civilizations and what their plans are for population control. I just think back to the Black Plague and the rats in London, and then the answer was, and then it was the fire of London that happened, and then suddenly it mysteriously just disappeared off the face of the earth. So it was a bit weird what happened there. Was it destroying evidence? There's so much there potentially to sort of look into. But I wouldn't get too caught up in it. The other issue is if you go too far, sometimes you get in a situation where you might become a threat to government. Basically, it's just the truth. Nobody really cares outside of that. You can tell people. I mean, today I mentioned about Zika as a bioweapon, and bloke didn't bat an eyelid. It didn't surprise him. But yeah, that's just the way that goes. Yeah, I'll move on to talk about dreams, and also things that potentially can connect to your dreams. If you've had any sort of interdimensional contact, you get shadows, you've had really strange dreams or anything like that, potentially you've had some kind of connection with an entity of some sort. It could be that you've had too much cheese before you went to bed, but I don't think that's it, or chocolate, or whatever they would say. Why these sort of tales. Sometimes a dream just feels like there's somebody else there, and you can't quite understand it. I mean, I had several sort of dreams. Basically, I worked the whole weekend and I was knackered, and on Saturday I was just virtually collapsed on the bed. But I saw something in my mind, and it was very strange because I was just exhausted. And at first I thought it was a Chinese man, but he's bald and he's quite tall. And then the head sort of elongated slightly, and the eyes started to come out, so they become more. I mean, they're quite slitty like my eyes like this. I think they sort of come out of his head a bit more. So he's basically his features sort of distorted, and I realise he's actually some type of other entity. I mean, potentially he's probably an Arcturian or something like that. I haven't fully classified what that meant. And then there was last night. There's a few things. You just sometimes get this like thought, like almost a word pop in your head, and it's kind of like it's asked a question in some way. I would say that the telepathy of these particular entities is they're slightly ahead, they're really fast, to be honest. They're lots of fluent telepathy. Basically, they're almost answering the question before they've even asked it. So it's kind of really. It's almost like when you have a conversation, someone's telling you something, and then they tell you the answer within that conversation. So then why are they asking it? Because they've almost sort of read your body language or read something about you, and then they've sort of picked up, and then they say, oh yeah, it's probably that then, and you think, well, what was the point point of that conversation? So it's a bit like that. Last night, very strange, very strange. Sort of something deep-rooted in trying to look into my morality, I guess, and stuff like that. There was something to do with basically, there was like I was sat at a computer, and I got a flatmate that who lives sort of above me, basically, in a little down the corridor. But he was there, and then there was something about he wanted to watch pornography on the computer, so he put something on there, and then my mum was in the room, and it was very bizarre because she was in the room, and this was going to come on, so I didn't want it to come on because it was like you click this thing and something's come up on it, and I thought, oh God. So I tried to close it, and it was sort of like, oh, well, why don't we watch what's on the computer? No. So close it down. Because it just seems strange, but I don't think the entity was my mum. I think it was something else. I mean, why would it be interested in what's on the computer, and why would I be set up to look at it? I've had another dream before where there's been like this older type computer I've been looking at, and it's just been encouraged me to put in some numbers or something. And I've gone to put in a password for something, and I put someone else's name in it for some reason. I was looking up somebody else, and then I looked over my shoulder, and then there was like something just peeking behind a door. So I was in a room, like a lab, and it was something, an entity like a grey or something that was just monitoring me from the corner of the room. So it was very sort of surreal experience. I mean, I don't discredit, I wouldn't say, I mean, some stuff that comes across in your mind may be that you've kind of fabricated out of interest or boredom or something, but I don't assume that some things that are just triggered for no reason is just a wandering mind in essence. It's possibly the consciousness is kept at a higher level. I think at a higher point we do connect. So that's the bridge. That's the quantum bridge of consciousness between us and other species. Something else as well. Yesterday, I was feeding one of my clients, and I had a fork and a knife in my hand, and it's a bit more down like the qigong. Like basically, you can feel like a field, and it repulses against it. So it's like I was holding a knife and fork, and it's sort of like pushing away from each other. I was sort of like holding and waiting for this client to finish eating and have his next piece of food. So I had to move. I had to basically tilt the knife slightly away from it because it was just creating this energy field between the two. And I thought that's interesting. It's like divining rods and that sort of nature of things. So it possibly would key into ascension, but basically spiritually and energetically we were sort of evolving. And as it's quite interesting, I was watching something on YouTube, and it was mentioned as our senses change, also our being will change as well. So if you gained an extra sense, like your sixth sense, as they say, if that become more, if you basically exercise it, even you don't have to fully believe in it. You can be a skeptic. I mean, no one's challenging that. It's like it's kind of like an artist. If they can picture something and put something down, and if they say they pictured it in their mind, somebody might say it was all imaginary, and he might say, well, I got my inspiration from something more spiritual. I mean, the fact is, the outcome is a product from that experience, and who's to justify what's in one mind to another? It's basic choice, human choice. We have the ability to create into our environment from our sort of core being, our consciousness. So, I mean, again, it was synchronicity, and I see quite a lot of it. As I'm driving around, I'm seeing I always see it as a kind of good sign, is that if on a number plate, I see my initials at the end of it, and that's been happening quite frequently. I mean, maybe I'm just sort of ignoring all the other number plates in the world, but when I see that, sometimes it's a sign. Usually I'm lost, or I'm going back to a point, and it's kind of like you're on the right track. That's the way I sort of read it. I mean, I did have in the past where there was someone who was on my mind, and it was basically I was just conned on the internet with some woman, and I had her on my mind. I was like, well, I can't really switch off from this because I did actually like her. And I went in the shop, and her name's sort of unusual anyway, because I think it's like Ukrainian or well, that's what she claims, she was Ukrainian. But then I just saw stacks of boxes with her name on it. It's like 30. I haven't seen that company ever again, so I just thought that was a very strange experience that you walk into a shop and then you're seeing that. So maybe it's just like get over it sort of thing. Seeing a name in the box, so yeah. I was also wondering maybe this recent thing in the UK with the Brexit. It could be a step of independence. It could be possibly that there's a division within the shadow government. This is quite an interesting point, actually. The countries claim to be against each other in different ways or in competition, but that's just a distraction from the truth. I think they're all being unified by a shadow government. I was thinking about certain, like they all have similar technology. HARP gets rolled out. HARP's all over the planet. They don't have issues, these countries, with that kind of going on. It's a bit like there's Tesla technology that's in Russia. There's probably Tesla technology in other countries as well. So they kind of, even though there's a resistance between them, there's a kind of unification that's there as well. I just don't think that all of them are willing to go with the plan. So with the Brexit, well, basically the banking system would all move into Germany, and as you see what's happening now was quite right. He said that all the world wars, this was from from Simon Parkes, he said all the world wars seem to start in Germany. We've got a Germany connection there. So you don't want to push all your finances into Germany, then let's create a situation where a war starts, then it becomes this ultra-military type state, and then it expands into like a new Nazi type conditioning. So basically, I think that's what would happen. There's this idea of basically you war against us, and then suddenly we come out and we bomb the shit out of you or do whatever they need to do. They've got enough underground bases. Basically, they would love to have this little nuclear war somewhere, decimate the population. Because the thing is with radiation, like with Chernobyl, the wildlife are not necessarily affected in the same way, but human life is. I think because our genetics are slightly different. We develop cancer and it kill us off pretty quick, but something like a wolf, you can have a radioactive wolf and it seems to be unaffected by it, and there's a few anomalies or mutations, but it could be because of less chromosomes or it's a different construct there, that they can basically, it's what you can get away with. So if you just, because DNA in itself is like data, so if you kind of delete a few files of this data stream of information, can this being still function? The same for the organs, they've all got this system set up for them, but if you disrupt it in certain ways, then the impact of that has on the whole organism, and plus the intelligence system is all wired up together with DNA. So wildlife and nature don't seem to be affected so badly by radiation, but human life is. So if you turn this place into a nuclear wasteland, the trees and everything could grow. We just won't have any humans on the planet. So that's the evil of the world, and why there's necessary to build all these sort of like nuclear power plants, and when there is zero-point energy technology and other things there that they could utilise. Instead they got like sort of the old, whoever signs to agree at what level of technology we can be at. So we really are a slave to potentially what's out there, what we used to be in the past possibly. Because I think if we've got this like I think the Queen endorses wind turbines or something like that, but they hardly utilise any power. I mean, you can get more energy out of the salt water in the sea. You could utilise that into some sort of reactor, or use it in some way. We could use it in cars and all sorts of stuff. But yeah, I digress. So I think there's also to thinking back. Do people want to live underground? Especially the elite people. You can build a palace underground, that's fine, but it won't have the same function as being on top of the earth. And I think people don't want that. There's some leaders who are resistant to it, but in the scheme of things, it all might roll out anyway. So it's a case of just enjoy your time on Earth. That's the best way before it turns into something completely different. So anyway, this is Pixie signing off, and have a great day.